I think we're on. Looks like there's 44 of you here already. That's awesome. I appreciate you, especially on such short notice. I know that a lot of people get upset with me when I don't give a lot of advance notice when I'm going to do a live stream. And the reason that I've got things structured this way, kind of a loose program, but it's just because I'm juggling a lot of things over here. And it's difficult for me to guarantee that I'm going to be able to do a live stream at a certain time. So in my mind, it's better to give you guys like 15 minutes of notice before I'm going to go live than it would be to like tell you yesterday that I was going to do a live stream today at 3 o'clock and then have something come up where I couldn't do it. I just don't want to be canceling on people. I like to, when I say I'm going to do something, I like to go ahead and follow through and do that. So you may have noticed no video today, and that's why we're here. As time goes on, I think more people are going to pick up on the fact that when I do miss a video, that I'll generally do a live stream the next day. And as far as what time that live stream is going to happen, it's, you know, I can't always say, but it'll be that day. So hello everyone, Brazil, Fair Oaks, Virginia, wow, all over the world. That's pretty cool. Stockton. So no video today, and that is because I actually cut my hay yesterday, and I kind of feel bad about this. I didn't film any of it. Well, I filmed about 10 seconds of it while I was driving, but I did not do the whole production like I normally do. And the reason for that is that, as many of you guys know, if you don't, you're about to find out. The swather, the machine that I use to cut the hay, is not something that I own. It is something that I rent from a friend of mine. And as luck would have it, during this time of year when I need it, the guy that owns the machine needs it a lot as well. So I'm kind of, I can use it when he has time for me to use it. And in this case, he needed it the next day. So I basically had to get the field cut in one day. And if I was trying to film and do all the stuff that goes along with it, I'm not sure that I would have got finished. So I had to make sure that I got done with the machine in time to get it back to him. And that's why there's not going to be a video about cutting hay. I will go out there with a camera and talk a little bit about the hayfield, because there were a few things that I noticed. Some things good, some things not so good. I'm gonna need to definitely make some changes with the hayfield for next year. And I could talk about that, I guess, a little bit on the live stream, and then I will probably cover it again in a video where I can actually go out into the hayfield and show you guys what I'm talking about. But so let's rewind to last year. If you guys remember, the hay crop was extremely light. My yield was terrible last year. And the reason for that was that we got so much rain that a lot of the hay that I planted ended up getting drowned out. And hold on a second, I just heard someone pull in. Never mind, false alarm. So we got so much water last year that a lot of the hay drowned, which killed the yield for last year. This year, I thought our moisture levels were actually really good. We got a lot of rain, but it was spread out. And when you get a lot of rain spread out, that's kind of what you want, because you're not getting just a mass amount of water all at once. That's what can drown seed. When you get, you know, like an inch and then a week with no rain, and then an inch of rain and a week of no rain, that's pretty much perfect as far as what the crop wants to grow. And that's what we got this year. The big problem this year is that, well, it was weeds. I think after cutting the field, the tonnage out there is pretty decent, but I had weeds growing out there. A lot of wild oats, which is a problem that I've had in that field for several years. I thought I was kind of making progress with it, but last year it was too wet. I didn't get to spray anything. And this year I never found a good window to spray this specific chemical that would wipe out wild oats, foxtails, and things like that. So I guess 2 years in a row of not treating it, the problem has kind of returned. Check out my pink straw. That's not embarrassing at all. So this year we got the tonnage, but we got weed pressure. And the other thing that happened is I cut the field a lot later than normal. I mean, I was looking back at my notes from previous years. Normally, I've already got the hay baled and some of it even moved back into the barn by now. It would be very rare for me to just cut the field. We're not even really the beginning of, it's like the middle of May now. And the reason that I kept pushing it back and not cutting it is because every time I was getting geared up and ready to go, we would get some rain in the forecast. And those rain predictions delivered. And so in a sense, I'm glad I didn't cut it earlier, because then I would have rain damaged hay, like for sure. And I guess there's still no guarantee that I won't. I suppose a storm could still come in. But with these storms that kept rolling in, I had to push back cutting the hay until I finally was able to get out there, because you can't just wait for the last storm to roll in and then go cut it right away, because the problem is the ground is wet. Like this last storm, we got around 1 inch of rain and a lot of hail as well. So the ground is wet. If you lay hay down onto wet ground, then it just doesn't cure. You would have to go out there and rake it, because the ground holds the moisture in the stems and it just creates problems. So the hayfield this year was weedy and over mature. I'm not saying that the cows won't eat it, but I'm questioning what the nutritive value is going to be. So I think I might take hay samples and send them in to get them analyzed and see what the nutritive value actually is of the hay. And if it ends up that it is low and the hay is more of just like a filler for the cows, then we'll probably have to purchase some alfalfa to mix in with the excuse me, to mix in with the triticale and the forage mix that I grew. And hopefully between the alfalfa and those other ones, that we can get a ration that's suitable for the cows. And it may not even be an issue. I might send hay samples in and realize that it's not as bad as I think it is. I tend to get a little bit of a pessimistic attitude when it comes to these sorts of things. But you know, it could maybe be not as bad as I'm hoping. So that's what's going on. I really, you know, the hay video, the cutting the hay, that's like one of the big videos every year, and I feel bad that I missed it. But I will have to say, not filming it, I was able to get it done pretty quick, get the machine back to the owner so that he could move on and do the other things that he needs to do with it. Somebody, excuse me, somebody just asked about the cows giving birth. Have the last cows giving birth? I think in the last video that I spoke about this, there were still 5 that were due to calve. There were 3 here at the home ranch and 2 over at the winter pasture. So as of now, the 2 at the winter pasture, at least to my knowledge, have not had their calves, but they look big. They're bagging up. I just feel like any day it's coming. And then the 3 cows that are here, one of them did 2210, which is the black white face. She should be a first calf heifer this year, but if you guys that have been with the channel remember, this is the same cow that she basically had a calf as a yearling. I think she was, what did I figure out? That she probably got bred when she was like 7 or 8 months old, which for Angus cattle is very young. Usually they don't start cycling when they're that young, so this isn't something that you worry about, but for whatever reason she did. So basically she got bred before she was weaned, and she carried the calf to term. She delivered it on her own as a long yearling. I think she was like 14 months old, maybe 15, 16, you know, somewhere around there. She was a little over a year old. So she delivered it. It was always a scrawny little thing. It never amounted to much because her milk supply was so low at being as young as she was. Um, but because of all that, actually, I was kind of thinking she probably wouldn't breed this year because a lot of times, for whatever reason, the second calf is the hardest calf to get the cow bred to. And I don't know if it's because their bodies are still growing or their hormones are just kind of wacky at that age. But the first calf is usually pretty easy to get them bred to. The second calf, very difficult. Not uncommon at all for second calf heifers to have late calves or just not even be bred at all. And then usually the third calf and from then on out is pretty good. So when you get a second calf heifer that has a calf on time, that's definitely one that you want to keep. If you got a second calf heifer that misses or is late, I usually give them a second chance because odds are they're going to breed back and be fine for the rest of their life. And to me, you've already got her that far along. It seems better to just breed her again than to bring in a replacement heifer to take her place and then kind of go through the whole thing all over again. It's not ideal to keep a cow that doesn't give you a calf, for sure. And if I didn't have any others that needed to be culled, then that would be one that would be eligible. But anyway, for her second calf, she did breed and it was relatively on time. It was a little bit late, but her first calf that she should have never had was a little bit late as well, which would obviously push her back. And I would imagine that next year she's probably going to be right on time. So she did have her calf and it... Belly. Sorry about that. Farmer that owns the rice fields all around me just drove by and Belly is not happy about this. Belly, hey, Belly. Belly, lay down. Lay down. Lay down. So, you know, watchdog, it's in her breed. You wouldn't get mad at a fish for swimming. I guess you can't get mad at a German Shepherd for being protective, right? So 2210 had her calf, one of her rivets. Again, it's a little gray, a little smoke colored calf, and I've seen it up nursing and everything seems to be doing fine with it. So we still have the two out here. We've got number 16, Belly. It's good, man. Thank you. You can lay down now. He's gone. Lay down. Sorry about that. Very professional live stream, I must say. So we got number 16, and we've got number 62, I think it is. 62 is a second calf heifer, and she's late, which is no big surprise. 16 really has no excuse for being late. I'm not sure what her deal is, and I'm afraid that she is maybe not bred at all because while she is very big, she looks pregnant, she's not making any sort of a bag. And you know, sometimes they're just big like that just because they're fat, because they're not growing a calf inside of them. Everything that they've been eating is just going to, you know, make fat. So that could be what we're seeing with her. I'm not really sure. I'm going to give them both a little bit more time to go. I think 62 will have one. It's probably going to, you know, be a later one, but, you know, we'll just wait and see. And this is one of the reasons why preg checking, it's really something that I want to do this year. And now with the AeroQuip chute with the vet cage, I think it will be easier to do it. I've talked about it before. I don't think that I'll go the route of having a vet come out and palpating the cows and feeling them that way. But I think that I might try bioprint. I don't know. I still need to talk to Jeremy at Split Creek Ranch. He's done the bioprint program before, which if you don't know what that is, you take blood samples from each one of your cows and then you mail the blood samples off to the lab. They do, I'm not sure what they're looking for, some hormone, I imagine, see if the cow is pregnant, and then they give you those results. So I feel like that's more accurate, more reliable than a palpation test. but you have to wait a little bit longer to get your results. So I'm kind of leaning towards doing that this year. And then, we would avoid these sorts of things, sitting around wondering if cows are going to calve. You know, I don't think bioprint is going to give you an estimate or an estimate of how far along they are, like a palpation would, but it just gives you yes or no. And really that's all that I need to, that's the only information I'm really after, I guess. And yes, if you hear bawling in the background, it's because the bottle calves have seen my truck pull into the barn here, and I think they're up here looking for a bottle. I'm getting them trained pretty good, though. In the mornings, they'll be out with the cows, and I can stand at the fence line and call them. And they don't come running quite like a dog does, but they do. They make their way up here, so I don't have to go out and find them, which is nice. So what time is it in Australia? Because I think I keep seeing in the chat a lot of people from Australia saying hello. So I don't know what time it is in Australia. I feel like it's probably the middle of the night, but maybe it's like a really convenient time for you guys right now. I was talking with someone about this the other day, about when is the best time to do a live stream. And it's difficult because a good time for me on the West Coast is maybe not a good time for people on the East Coast, which is maybe not a good time for someone in the UK or someone in Australia. Okay, so 8:16 a.m. in Australia. See, I would think this is not a great time for a live stream for you guys, but I do see a lot of people saying hello from Australia, so that's pretty cool. 8:15 in the morning, yeah. But what morning? Is it Sunday morning or Saturday? See, this is where my ignorance is really going to shine through. So I try to do these at a time that I think is going to, work for the most people, but there's really not like a magic time that I think is going to work good for everybody. All right, I'm getting distracted now reading the chat here. Thank you, Elizabeth. I appreciate that. Okay, so speaking of the bottle calves, I thought that would be a good thing to talk about a little bit today, because I feel like a lot of the previous videos have either been about them or they've been a part of the video in some way or another. And I was thinking about them today, since bringing them here to the ranch and putting them in with the main cow herd. I was thinking about actually how well they have transitioned. Once I figured out where the hole in the fence was, where they were getting out, things have actually been going really well with them. And I was thinking about when I reintroduced Buddy out into the herd when he was a bottle calf, and I think he was maybe a little bit older than what these guys are, but I remember when I put him out there that he did not blend with the herd very well right away. Like, a lot of times when I'd come out and check on him, he would just be off by himself, or he'd be standing at the gate waiting for me, or he would be not with the cows, not really it was like he didn't know that he was a cow, which is quite possible because he hadn't ever been with cows. He'd only been with us. So it did take him a while to sort of like melt back into the herd, but it did, eventually happen. These two, Smokey and Littles, our bottle calves this year, I feel like blended back in very quickly. In fact, we've only had them out with the herd now for a little over a week, I think. And every time I come out to feed them, they are off with the other cows. So it's like they know that they're cows, and it could have been helpful that they were being raised together, so that, you always wonder, like with animals, how much of how they identify other animals is from sight or smell or whatever it might be. I feel like animals use smell way more than humans do, but I also feel like they do use sight, because I've seen cows that I know have gray calves, kind of like more interested in smoky, for example, or cows that I know have black calves are more interested in checking out littles. So it's like, I basically, what I take from it is that they see the color and they think, oh, that might be my calf. So they'll go and sniff them, and that kind of confirms one way or another whether it is or not. So I think the two calves being raised together kind of like helped them understand that they are cows. And then when they got back out with the main herd, you know, maybe that just helped them blend in with them a little bit better. It seems to be that way, at least. I want to show you guys something, if I can do it without covering the lens here. So she is watching. The farmer is driving around checking his water right now, and she is just staring at him. So are the calves... Belly, lay down. Hey, lay down. Little technical difficulties here. Again, we can't get mad at Belly for doing what she's born to do, right? He's gone now. Thank you. So, are the calves nursing on other cows? See, I thought 100% when I put Buddy out with the other cows that he would start nursing on them, and at some point I would no longer have to bottle feed him. But Buddy taught me something. And these calves are confirming. Belly, stop. Stop. Hey, stop it. Hopefully the farmer doesn't drive by again. So I've not had any bottle calf go back out into the herd and start nursing on a cow. Now, why might this be? Well, I think it's because when they're raised on a bottle for so long, especially from birth, like Smokey probably nursed on his mother. I almost think he had to have, as healthy as he was when I found him. So let's say he got one nursing. Littles, our black calf, he did not nurse at all, because if you remember, when I found him, he was selenium deficient. He couldn't even stand up. So I know that he never nursed on a cow. And what I'm getting at here is that for their entire lives, essentially, they have associated me and bottles with their food, not other cows. So I think the window has closed as far as that instinctual knowledge that they would have had as newborns to reach up, you know, between a cow's legs and nurse. I think that's gone now. And they have been conditioned over these last months to just get food from me. So what I'm saying is it's not even in their head, I don't think, to even try to nurse on a cow. Like, in their mind, they don't know that food comes from a cow. They think food comes from me. So they could prove me wrong, because they do have a tendency to like suck on each other's ears and you know, a lot of anything they can kind of get their mouth on. So there is a chance that one day they could just get lucky and happen to grab a hold of a cow's teat and realize, hey, this is where food comes from. But that would be probably a fairly low chance of that happening, honestly. I thought about bringing that heavy milking cow in and like showing them how to nurse on her. But, well, the problem with that, I think, especially when I had that cow locked up, 26, and her calf 17, the one that I was helping nurse, what I was worried about and why I didn't bring any bottle calves over to nurse on her, even though she, yes, had the supply to feed two. The problem would be is that I think the bottle calves would like drain that cow, and then there would be nothing left for her actual calf. So now that he's nursing on her, he's keeping her bag nursed down pretty well. And I think if she was trying to feed 2 or even 3 calves, that at this point they would just all be suffering. So yeah, we're just bottle feeding these guys. I mean, that's what is that's what we've been doing. I mean, fortunately, the beef market is so good right now that you can really justify spending the money on formula, because that stuff's not cheap. I think a 50-pound bag of the milk replacer is, I want to say, $115 or something like that. So it's not cheap. And there have been years, depending on what the cattle market is doing, that it wouldn't pay to raise bottle calves. You were basically just raising them and breaking even on them, is essentially what was happening. But I think these guys actually could turn a profit, and yes, that is the intended goal for these two. I know a lot of people have asked about, are we just going to have 2 more buddies now? And I'm trying to really dig my heels in on this one and say, no, we're not. We can't keep every bottle calf, unfortunately. It's too bad that we never have heifers that are bottle calves, because then I would go ahead and keep them, because we could breed them. They would be productive members of the herd. But a herd can only have so many lead steers, and honestly, one is probably more than you need. So the goal, I don't think that I will put the bottle calves into my harvest steer program. I think that they will just go to the auction, and at some point we'll wean them off the bottles when they're probably like 4 months old, maybe 5 months old. And I'm sure that they will always be tamer, but once we're not feeding them a bottle every day, I think they will kind of not get wild, but they will be not probably as friendly as they are now. Because honestly, when they get to a certain size, they can be a little bit dangerous, because they're pushy, they want their milk, and they're not afraid to headbutt your leg to let you know it. So, they're not really ideal pets. Buddy's kind of a special case. I will say that, but that's kind of where we're at with them. Is a lead steer a cow supervisor? I don't really know what a lead steer is. You hear people talk about them, and I think it's, yeah, I don't know. When you're moving pastures, you would assume from the name that the steer is kind of leading the herd. That's not really been what I've noticed with Buddy. He's not really the leader. He's just kind of out there doing his thing, but he is friendly, and you can still walk up and pet him. And yeah, so that's why we keep him around. He's really just become a pet, just like people have horses for pets or whatever the case might be. Well, that's what Buddy has turned into. And I know a lot of the people that watch my videos would be very upset with me if I sold Buddy along with my family. They would also be very upset with me. So Buddy's safe. He's gonna live his days out here. I don't know. It'll be kind of interesting to see how old he becomes. We know he's the same age as Macy, my daughter, because they were born like a couple months apart from each other. And yeah, so we'll see what happens with him. All right, I want to buzz through the chat here. I know that I'm drinking water. Don't worry. I know a lot of people get, I see your guys' questions coming in, and I'm sorry that I don't address them all right as they come in. And the reason for that is I have noticed that as I'm trying to read the chat while I'm talking, it's hard for me to do both. I know some people are good at that, but I'm not one of those people. So I hate to ignore you, but I also hate to continue to stop mid-sentence, and then I'm not answering your question. I'm not really finishing my own thought. And to me, well, that's not a live stream that I would want to watch. So every once in a while, though, I do like to go back through the chat and see what you guys are saying and see if there's any questions that I need to answer. Man, there's a spider on my neck. Okay, so Deborah asked, do I have help on the farm or do I do all the work solo? If solo, do I have a plan of action for emergencies? That's a really good question, actually. So I would say 99% of the time I am out here by myself doing the work by myself. There are special occasions where I might call someone in, like when I poured the concrete slab for my chute. I had my dad help me with that just because it's difficult to pour a yard of concrete, finish it, get the mixer returned to the rental place, and just do all that yourself. You can't be in more than one place at a time. So for something like that, yeah, I would call in some help. Excuse me. You ever just been talking and your nose just itches in the worst way, and you keep thinking, well, if I just keep talking, it'll go away. But no, you got to scratch it at some point. I don't know what that is. Goodness. So yes, most of the time I'm out here by myself. But my wife is kind of in and out of here throughout the day. My mom is in and out of here through the day. My uncle's in and out. So there's people around, but I guess my emergency plan, if I was to get hurt, is I always have my phone with me. Now, if I get knocked out, yeah, the phone doesn't do you any good. But if you get knocked out, then really nothing does you any good unless someone is there with you. So I guess my wife knows where I'm at and she knows about when I should be home. And, we'll occasionally touch base with each other. But honestly, hey, I'll admit it. I don't really have a good emergency plan. And that probably is something that I need or should, especially like the nature of the work that I'm doing over here. Sometimes it can be a little bit dangerous. But I am very careful. I am very mindful of the fact that I am here by myself and that if something was to go wrong, that it would be very bad for me. Like, I really don't want to end up, I don't know, breaking my leg or something and spending the night out here. That would not be ideal. Um, so I do try to take like extra steps to be more careful, or if I am doing something that I know is more dangerous than say just the average thing that I might be doing, then I'll like tell Bree like, hey, I'm doing this. If you don't hear from me for a while, then maybe come check on me or something. But yeah, honestly, I don't have a good plan. And it's something that I should have. It's something that anyone that works by themselves should have. Um, so yeah, I guess the cell phone is the best we got for now. Yeah, happy Mother's Day to all the mothers watching. We'll do an early happy Mother's Day to you. Yeah, I could Belly could be like Lassie for me, and if something happens, she could run back home and alert the authorities, and yeah, that would wouldn't it be nice if that would work? I mean, I almost think she might be smart enough to do that. I was just telling my dad today how I can tell how smart she is. And the way that I see that is it's like in the way that she gets into trouble. So when we're at home and she's in the house, which our dogs do come in the house. I know that's something I've been asked several times is, do we make them sleep outside or do they come inside? No, they are basically, they are where I am. If I'm inside, they're inside. If I'm outside, they're outside. But I was telling my dad that I have Belly stay on a bed. That's usually like the first thing I teach them when they're puppies is just how to stay on a bed, because that becomes like the most useful thing that they can know how to do, especially with larger dogs that get excited. When you have people over or whatever, it's nice to be able to just put them on their bed and know that they're going to stay there and not really have to worry about them. But what I've noticed is that when Belly's on her bed in the living room, if I get up and step outside or go to a different room or whatever the case might be, if I leave that room, I can hear her get up and start walking around, and I can tell she's doing stuff. So I come back in the room, and as soon as she sees me, she goes right back to her bed. Like, so it's not like she just got up because she didn't know, do I have to stay? No, she gets up because she knows that I'm not there to tell her that she has to stay. And then when I do come back in, she gets right back on her bed. And you can't really scold her because she got back on her bed like you want her to. So I don't know. That's been a difficult one to deal with. It's like you got to catch her red-handed, and then you can scold her a little bit and let her know that's not cool. But it's you know, a German Shepherd, the way their mind works is a lot different than the way a lab works. And for most of my life, I've had labs, and I kind of understand how they work, or how, you know, how that goes. And a German Shepherd is a little bit of a different story. I don't have a discount code for Wranglers. That's actually a company that I should, right? But they're already getting the advertising, so I don't know why they would do it now. Okay, Arthur Estrada is asking about when is a good time for family vacations. Thank you, JB Weld. The short answer is it's never a good time for a family vacation because there's always something going on. There is a small window once in a while in the spring where the grass is growing enough that I don't have to feed hay, but it's before calving. And then the weather makes it to where I'm not irrigating. So that would probably be the best time, but oddly enough, we never seem to go anywhere during that time. So basically, you just kind of have to work around the big things that are going on. I really don't like to leave. Well, honestly, I won't leave when we're in the middle of calving, especially before all the heifers are done. But really, I like the herd to be mostly done calving before I will even leave for a day. And then once you get through calving season, things loosen up a little bit. Usually by then I'm irrigating, so I kind of have to work around that, but I can, you know, set timers and set valves and kind of get stuff rigged up so that, you know, we can get away for a couple days. But honestly, I know normal people go on a vacation for like over a week, and I very rarely do that. I'm trying to think when the last time I did that was, but yeah, maybe when I went to Utah for the Redmond thing. I know we were gone for over a week then, but that was after calving was done, and we must have not been irrigating yet. I don't remember. But yeah, vacations are few and far between. We will usually go like in December. We go and camp on the coast for about a week. I guess that's like our regular vacation that we do every year. And when I do that, I have to like stuff as many round bales as I can in the feeders so that they have some. And then you know, my poor parents who live fairly close to here, they usually get stuck with feeding duties of any other animals that I can't like pre-feed enough to keep them going. Do I have problems with wild animals? Not really, honestly. We have coyotes out here, which I think everywhere does. But, you know, I see them around, but I don't really ever see them bothering cows or calves. Now, my great uncle had a big ranch in eastern Oregon. And I remember him telling me, and when I say a big ranch, they were on like tens of thousands of acres. I actually don't know the exact number, but it was like a real ranch. I call this a ranch because we raise livestock here, generally a ranch is like a big tract of land, which this is not, but I don't really call this a farm either, because I think a farm is like where you grow crops, right? So anyway, my great uncle had a big ranch in Eastern Oregon, and they had a big problem with coyotes bothering the cows, to the point where he told me, I mean, obviously this was long before my time, but he did tell me a story about how the coyotes, which up there I guess they would roam in packs. What here we don't really see them in packs. I'll see usually loners, maybe two of them together at the most, but I guess up there like 5 or 6 would run together. That wasn't uncommon. Um, but the coyotes would like find a cow that was down giving birth in labor, and they would just sit around and wait. And as soon as the calf would start coming out, they would just move in on it before it was even completely out of the cow, because they knew that the mother was unable to get up and fight them off. Once she got the calf out, she could stand up and fight them off, but by then oftentimes it was too late. So that's it's a pretty gruesome example of what what nature is capable of sometimes. Fortunately, I don't have that sort of an issue with the coyotes out here. I think they mostly live on rodents, crawdads, things like that. I haven't ever seen them mess with a calf. It's not to say they never would, but they they don't. So other than that, yeah, we don't have wild pigs, at least in this part of California. There, if you go like 20 miles either way, they got wild pigs, and we just don't really have them in the valley here. I'm not sure why that is, but they're around, but just not in this direct area. And a while ago, I started going down the rabbit hole of watching channels where they trap pigs, and and I don't know, that it looks kind of neat to me, just the way it's I don't know, it's kind of cool. But um, no, we don't have pigs here. We don't really here at the home ranch. I've never seen a rattlesnake, but like up at the steer pasture, there's a ton of snakes. Although I've never seen one up there, but I know that's like prime rattlesnake habitat there. I have found a rattlesnake in my hayfield, which is about 4 miles that way. So again, I think we've got rattlesnakes around, but just not really here. And it could have something to do with the rice fields, that they just don't do well in that environment or whatever. I have seen a king snake at my house, which again is not anything that's really going to bother me or the animals. And they say that where you got king snakes, you have rattlesnakes, but I've seen several king snakes at my house and never a rattlesnake. So make what you will of that. We do actually have mountain lions. Again, never seen one, but I've heard plenty of stories from my neighbors. And again, this would be like around the winter pasture along the river there. There have been mountain lions over there. And I feel like a mountain lion probably would attack a calf, but to my knowledge, it's never happened in this area. A mountain lion or a cougar, or whatever you might call it where you're from, their favorite meal is deer, and there are a bunch of deer along the river there, so I imagine that's what they're living on. But there have been mountain lions in the area, or like where my parents live, where the walnut orchard is. I know they never saw one, but they heard one that was way in the back. So there's critters around, but they haven't really been too much of a problem, for what I'm doing at least. So I don't think king snakes are poisonous, but they do eat rattlesnakes. I see that somebody already beat me to it in the comments. But I don't think they're poisonous. If they are, somebody tell me, but I'm pretty sure king snakes are non-venomous. So yeah. Okay, Dean is asking about plans to build a loader for the blue New Holland here behind me. You know, I had thought about that a lot, and I don't know. I'm going back and forth on it. It would be cool. It'd be a fun project. It would be a pretty expensive project, honestly. It would probably, and I think I've said this before, but it would probably be better if I could find like a used loader, some takeoff, or, you know, which I don't know why anyone would ever separate the loader from the tractor and sell it by itself, but you see them from time to time. But anyway, if I got that, that would get me the hydraulic cylinders and a lot of the stuff that would be expensive to buy new. So I'm not, we'll put it this way, it's not at the top of the list at the moment. It's not something that I've completely said I will never do, but it's just not, it's not really on the priority list right now. Now, if the old 8N here has some issues, it might move up the priority list pretty soon, but as of now, I don't really have plans to do that in the near future. Although it would be cool. I would have to say that this tractor would be so much more useful if it had a loader on it. I know that I would use it all the time. It might even be worth it to just buy a new one, but I don't think a new one has enough reach to get up to the top tier here in the barn. That's one thing about the 8N. It's got a rickety old loader on it, but man, that thing's got some reach on it. And I don't know that a modern loader would reach that top tier. And I don't want to go down a tier because I would lose so much storage space in here. I'd have to put a lot of hay outside, which I don't want to do. So that's where we're at with that. And as long as we're talking about tractors, I know a lot of people are probably, I don't know, maybe a lot of you have given up on me at this point. But the Jubilee, it's still in the shop. It's still, I'm not like giving up on that one yet. But now we've got like the Honda side-by-side is down. That needs to get in the shop and get fixed. Honestly, it probably takes priority over the Jubilee because of how much I use it. I do have the Yamaha side-by-side, but so I should, I guess, clarify, because a lot of people notice that I've been driving around in the Yamaha side-by-side and they're asking, oh, did you get a new one? Well, if you've noticed over the years, that Yamaha we have had for, I think, since 2018. You might have noticed it in the background in the shop, but it's been there. So we bought that side-by-side before we even had kids, and the purpose of that one was like when we went camping, we would take that. Sometimes Bree and I would just go to the mountains for the day and ride, and that was just kind of like our recreational side-by-side, whereas the Honda was more of the workhorse. That's the one that I always had tools in, and so that's kind of how that came to be. So when the Honda went down, my choices were go buy a new one, which I'm not prepared to do, go without, which I'm also not prepared to do, or jump in the Yamaha and roll around in that one. So that's what I've been doing. It's not as good for work. The bed is small. It's you know, it's just not as good as the Honda for that purpose, but it is better than nothing. So and I feel very grateful that I even had that option, because, you know, a lot of people might not have that. So we're lucky in that regard for sure. So that's the deal with the Yamaha side-by-side. But yeah, I haven't even honestly turned a wrench on the Honda yet. I was going to order parts, and then I thought, yeah, I probably better take it apart and see what's the matter with it before I jump in and order a bunch of parts for it. So that, again, on the to-do list. But man, you guys, it's springtime. There's so much going on right now. It's hard to make time for a mechanical project like that at the moment, and that's just the reality of it. I know as summer starts rolling in, I'll probably start to have some more time, and then I'm not going to want to work in the shop because it's going to be 150 degrees in there. But we'll probably have to start diving into that stuff at some point then, because as you may remember, my ultimate plan for the Jubilee tractor is to go and redo it and then slap the loader that's on this tractor onto that tractor. And the reason is that the Jubilee has got a little bit more power. It's got a little bit of a lower reverse gear. Like, this tractor in reverse is pretty fast. And honestly, when I'm offloading round bales off of my trailer, you really got to drag the clutch, or else you're moving, man. So I think the Jubilee would be better having that lower first gear, or that lower reverse. I think it also has a lower first gear, matter of fact. But this loader was retrofitted to fit on an 8N. That model of loader was actually designed to go on a Jubilee or an NAA, which is what that tractor kind of is. It's a, you know, a smorgasbord, if that's a good word to use for this, of several different tractors. Thank you, DSR. I saw that come in. Anyone that's given me a super chat, thank you. If I didn't mention your name, I apologize. But yeah, so I think the Jubilee or the NAA would be a better loader tractor than the 8N would. And then I would probably take the wheels and tires, because the tires are new, and put them on the NAA. And then that would be the loader tractor. I think it would be fairly reliable, having been freshly rebuilt. And, you know, I might have to spruce the loader up a little bit before I put it on there as well. But then at that point, I could take the 8N and probably not do like a full paint job and all the things that I'm planning to do to the NAA. But I do maybe just want to freshen the motor up, because I think it's cylinder number 3 is like, burns a lot of oil. That's the one that fouled the plug last year because it's burning so much oil in that cylinder. And you know, like Grandpa used to say, you don't ever have to change the oil in that tractor. You just keep it full, because you're just kind of changing the oil all the time. So long term, that's kind of what my plan is for these tractors. This tractor has a functional PTO and a functional 3-point. So it would be good for like, I mean, honestly, probably wouldn't be good for much, because it doesn't have a lot of power. I don't think it would have enough power to like run the mower or the post hole digger or anything like that. But there's probably some application that I would find for it. Mostly I'm thinking about just like pulling the manure spreader with it rather than pulling it with the side-by-side. So I've got plans, but you know, they take a while to come to fruition. I think everyone can relate to that, right? So Chris asks, what's my favorite breed of cattle and why? Well, that's a kind of a tough question to answer. I'm not sure that I have a favorite breed. I have several that I like, and probably my favorite cow would be like a cross of the breeds that I like. In a commercial cattle herd, really the only animals that you would want to be purebred would be your bulls. And the reason is that when you have purebred bulls, their progeny, their offspring, are more predictable. You kind of know what you can expect or what you're going to get out of those bulls. But the trade-off is, with crossbred cattle, they're a little tougher. There's what's known as hybrid vigor, which is exactly what it sounds like. When you have a hybrid of these different breeds being put together, it creates a more vigorous animal. And I could attempt to get into the science behind that. It's been a while since I really studied this stuff, but it's basically hybrid vigor, which is also, excuse me, I'm still getting over my sick a little bit, and talking for an hour doesn't help it either. But hybrid vigor, or heterosis as it's also called, is often expressed as a percentage. So like you could have a cow that has 100% heterosis or 50% heterosis. And what that would look like is when you took, let's say, a purebred Black Angus bull and bred him to a purebred Hereford cow, that calf would have 100% heterosis because you're taking genes from either breed, and I guess it's referring to the percentage of gene pairs that are different. So if you've got like genes from Angus, genes from Hereford, those are 100% different than one another, if that makes sense. If you're dealing with crossbred cattle, then like, let's look at the other end of the spectrum. If you bred a purebred Black Angus bull to a purebred Black Angus cow, that calf would have 0% heterosis because those gene pairs are from the same blood. I don't want to say bloodline, but I know if Jeremy's watching, he's probably just pulling his hair out because I know my terminology is probably not correct, but I think you kind of get the gist of what I'm saying. So like, well, I won't even give another example. I think you can kind of connect the dots. You take a breed and a completely different breed, put them together, the offspring is 100% or has 100% heterosis. You take two of the same breeds, they have 0%. And heterosis and hybrid vigor are basically synonymous with each other. I've heard people use both, but usually people say hybrid vigor because I think when you use the term hybrid vigor, it kind of explains what it means. People aren't like, what's heterosis? But they hear hybrid vigor, it's like, you kind of understand what that means. So what's the plans for breeding groups? Well, that's a good question too. It's something that I've been thinking about here. Loosely, this is what I've got so far. The Bismarck bull calf, he's not really a calf anymore, but I call him a calf because he's the smallest out of the three. He is going to go to the steer pasture and he will be responsible for breeding the 3 heifers that are up there with the steers. So the reason that I decided to do that is because I'd already kind of thought that I wanted to use him on the heifers, but originally my plan was to just lock them up in the little field and kind of rotate everyone else around them and do it that way. But I started thinking about like how that would actually work, and it would have been really difficult to try to have 3 different breeding groups on this property, still be able to rotate them on grass, still be able to irrigate, still be able to get everybody to water. Like, it would have been a challenge. I'm not saying it would have been impossible, but it would have been tough. So I decided it's far easier to send him to the steer pasture with those 3 heifers. Now, he is not a proven bull, and that makes me a little bit nervous, but he's only got 3 to cover up there. There's no reason why he shouldn't be able to do that. Now, I've seen him riding cow. I mean, if you remember, that's why I had to wean him in the first place, is because he was out there riding cows. I was afraid he was going to get somebody bred. So he definitely is ready to go in that aspect. And I think that, usually you sure feel a lot better having 2 bulls, just in case one, because it could be one gets injured, whatever the case. But it's that's where he'll go. He'll have 3 heifers to breed. I think he should be able to handle that. So here at the home ranch, the way that my acreage is divided, I've got a 12-acre pasture in the back, and then I've got about 20 acres of irrigated pasture in the front, plus the little field, which is about 2 acres. So I will split the herd not evenly. Let's say we put like 20 cows with Rivet and then 15 or 16 with Little Boy. And I think that that for the acreage and everything, that should work out about right. So probably like the smaller group of cattle and the bull will go to the backfield on that 12 acres. I'll have to get a little bit creative with how I rotate them through, because it obviously wouldn't be the same as when the entire herd is together. But once they get across that pasture, then what I'll probably have to do is keep that group in the little field and then use the remainder of my hay here to get them through while I'm irrigating that back pasture. And then I know it's probably kind of confusing when you're not like actually here seeing how everything's laid out, and I know, but that's kind of the plan for now. Now, with the front 20 acres, we could have a larger group of cattle, which would probably be rivet and like, let's say 20 cows. And same thing, I'll just move them through and irrigate behind them. They'll always have access to the big corral here for water. And I think that will work. The plan is to only separate the herd for like 2 breeding cycles, which would be 42 days. And at that point, we'll just put everybody back together. Couple reasons. First of all, if one bull is like having a problem or whatever the case might be, then when you put the herd back together, then the other bull can like clean up whatever he might have missed. We'll still be able to identify who the sire is of the calves just based off of when they're born. We'll know that the first calves born within those 2 cycle windows, we'll be able to deduce from that which bull is the sire. Once we put the herd back together, all those late calves could have come from either. It's kind of looking like Rivet's calves are very obvious as far as which ones are his. And that's something that we will learn, is that it is can Rivet make black calves? Because we assume that he could. In fact, we assume that that was mostly what he would make, but it's not turned out to be the case. Most of his calves, I think, are that gray smoke color, and possibly red and possibly black. But honestly, I don't think he makes black calves. I think all the black calves are from Little Boy and all the other colors are from Rivet. But anyway, I'm getting off topic here. So I think separating them for 42 days will be a little bit of a pain for me, but it's not terrible. It's, a little over a month. And then I can put them back together. That'll ensure everybody gets bred. It'll also be just easier for me from a management standpoint. And as of now, that is the plan. The plan could change. The reason that I am doing this, or that I want to try doing this, is not so much so that I can identify sires, because I think I can do that based off of color fairly reliably. The reason that I want to do this is to prolong the useful years that I can get out of both bulls. Because in a conventional scenario, or the way that I've done it up to this point, I could use the same bull for 2 years, but on year 3, he would be potentially breeding his own daughters. And in a purebred operation, that's not that big of a deal. In fact, it's something that does happen. But in a commercial herd, that's not really what you want. So what that would mean is that after 3 years, you either breed your heifers to a separate bull, or you have to get rid of bulls and bring new ones in. So earlier in the year, I had talked about just doing that and breeding the heifers to the Bismarck bull, and then I could get 3 years out of both Rivet and Little Boy. And I know this gets confusing, but by separating them and doing things the way that I'm thinking of doing, I will be able to get, like, I'm honestly not even sure, over 4 years, possibly 5 or 6 years out of the bulls. It'll just depend on, we'll have to keep track of who's sired who, and then those heifers, which bull they go with, and so on and so forth. So It's a lot more management, but it can be done. And the reason why I think it's worth it to go through all the trouble is just because I feel like it is such a waste to like buy these bulls as, and then breed them for the first time as, what were these guys? They weren't, yeah, I think they were yearlings or a little bit over. So basically at like 3 years old, they're now useless to me. Like, that seems ridiculous. Um, and for as much as bulls cost, you sure hate to just send them down to the auction and get butcher prices for them. So there is a potential that I could find a buyer that wanted to use the bulls for breeding, and in that case, at least they would like be useful for someone else. But I don't know. I just really wanted to think of a program that would allow me to keep the bulls for several more years. It just seems so silly to me to only use them for 2 years and then send them down the road. So I'm just trying to think of a way that I can avoid doing that. And with having 3 bulls here, this could even get more complicated. And we could start potentially sending more cows or like second calf, younger cows up to the steer pasture for the Bismarck calf. So we could get creative, and we'll see. It might not be something that I stick with for long. I might just decide it's too much trouble and not worth it. And then the other thing is, as bulls get older, they become more worried about other things, shall we say. We'll keep it family friendly. But they're far more concerned with fighting with each other and eating than they are with doing their job. So we're on, small acreage here, so I don't think that'll be as big of a problem for me as it would be for, say, someone, running on thousands of acres where the bulls have to travel to find the cows. But it's something to consider. And then the other nice thing about having that third bull and not really like putting him in that rotation is that, things happen. Bulls break legs, they break other things that people that raise cattle, you know what I'm talking about. They can get hoof rot. They can, a lot of things can happen to where they might not be able to do their job. So it might be really nice to just have that third bull as kind of a backup. So that's where we're at. But I will tell you this. I like Hereford cows, and I would love to get a Hereford bull at some point. But having a fourth bull just really doesn't make sense for me. So, I think whenever the time comes where one of these guys are, have to go down the road, and hopefully that could be like, sending them to another ranch where they can do breeding there. But for whatever reason, if we need to get rid of one, I think the next one that I will get would be a Hereford, which kind of goes back to the question that I started to answer, and I don't think I finished, which was, what is my favorite breed? And I think a mixture of Angus, Hereford has got to be in there. And then I'm kind of liking the Charolais influence from Rivet, although the Charolais influence is really mostly seen in the color, I think, because, remember, Rivet is only an 8th Charolais, which means his calves are only a 16th. So they have actually very little Charolais blood in them. We're seeing more of like the Angus that he has and the Simmental, I think. But the calves that I've got now, I like them. But right now, they're not really showing me what they can do. When we get, in a couple of weeks, we're going to be running everybody through to get weights on all the calves, and we can start tracking data on them. And then the first weights are not really that exciting because, the calves are little. But the next weights that we get after that, the weaning weights, are the ones that I get excited about, because then you see which calves are performing the best. This year, since we've got ear tags noting who mother is, we'll know which cows are making the best calves. So I think that will be that'll be interesting this year. And then as time goes on, it'll be fun to compare that data to like the next year's calf crop and the next year's calf crop, and really start to look for patterns as far as like what I mostly want to identify are my high producing females, because then when it comes time to keep heifers, those would be the cows that you would want to keep them from. Oh man. Oh, I see a lot of questions rolling in. I'm going to try to get to a couple of these, and I'll try not to be so long-winded with my answers, but I'm going to have to wrap this up pretty soon because my voice has just about had it. So Brian is suggesting I share my bulls with the guy that I used to get bulls from, which I would be totally willing to do, except Little Boy I actually bought from him. So I don't think he wants Little Boy to go back and breed into his herd. And I'm not sure that he is going to want the white color that Ribbit throws. So obviously, if he wanted to use those bulls, I would be more than happy to let him do it. But I'm not sure that he would want them. So Dexter, that's I don't think I would ever go that route, because I think to move to a Dexter bull, here's the thing about Dexters. If you don't have a market for that, then you're just shooting yourself in the foot, because if you're taking any of those calves to the auction, you're just going to lose your tail on them, because they're going to be light and buyers aren't going to want them, because in a conventional beef program, they want, traditional breeds that are going to grow to a traditional size. So taking Dexter calves to the auction is basically a terrible idea. So if you had a niche market that could consume that entire crop, like Pete on Just a Few Acres, that's a perfect example. He's selling all of his meat at a farmer's market. And so for him, Dexters make sense. For me, they do not at this point, because I'm still taking most of my calves to the sale and going through that outlet. I think if people were wanting to start like a direct meat sale business, and you were considering like taking 100% of the calves that your cows had and marketing them that way, then Dexters would make sense. But for me, they don't. And the other problem with Dexters is it's not going to be easy to find a quality bull. It's not like, I've got, breeders around me that I can go get a Dexter bull from. I'm not even really sure how I would go about doing it. You would almost have to like AI your cows and then keep size. So, it, for me at this point, at this stage where I'm at, it would be more trouble than it was worth. The main benefit to Dexters that I see is just that they are smaller, so you don't have to feed them as much. But knowing me, I would probably just have more to keep up with the grass needs. So I don't know. I don't really see the advantage. Some people like the beef better from Dexters. Some people like the size of the steaks from Dexters. But it's, at this point, at least in my area, it's a niche market that I'm just not really interested in getting into. Okay, so I will answer this. I see Michelle asking about branding, or somebody asked about branding. So I do brand my cows because my cows are traveling. They're not just staying here. If they only stayed here on the home ranch, I probably wouldn't. But because they go off site, they go to the winter pasture, they go to the steer pasture, I do. You guys, if you go back far enough in some old videos, you'll see me do it, but I don't show that on camera anymore, for what I assume are obvious reasons. Yeah, it's kind of a touchy subject, right? Because I think, you know, I've seen comments where people, you know, they are basically saying that I shouldn't do that, or, you know, why don't you do this? Why don't you, you know, they propose some alternatives. Well, the thing is with cows is the only real other alternatives that I've like seen realistically talked about would be identification ear tags or tattoos. So like they'll tattoo the inside of their ear with an ID number. This does happen with purebred cattle. In fact, I think Rivet does have a tattoo in his ear. But ear tags notoriously fall out. They don't stay on the animal. So if you don't have a brand or any sort of ID on that animal and she loses her ear tag, now what do you do? Maybe you have her ear tattooed, so now you could bring her up into the chute, give her a new ear tag after looking at the tattoo. But as far as just a permanent way to identify the cattle that you own at a glance from a distance, you know, branding is it. I mean, they've been doing it for hundreds of years because it works. So yeah, it's kind of a tricky thing to talk about, but that's why I brand. That's why people still brand the way that we do, because it's just like the 100% foolproof way of identifying an animal, and that's just the truth of it. So yeah, there it is. All right, I keep saying I'm gonna wrap it up, and then I think I'll try to grab a few more here. So let's see, how long do cows live? That's a good question too, because it's actually pretty difficult to answer. I can tell you that it's rare that a cow dies of old age. I think usually a cow will stop performing in one way or another, and she'll get cold, which, you know, sends her basically directly into the food supply. So it's uncommon for a cow to die of old age, although I'm not saying it never happens. This is data that I've actually not really tracked. I'm starting to track it now, but you know, I'll have a good answer for you in like 20 years as to how long they live. I've had in my memory, I think I've had 2 cows that got old enough to start turning gray. So I estimate that they were probably 22 years old, maybe more, at least 20 years old. So I think that gives you a fairly good idea. But like I say, most of them probably won't make it to that age, just for one reason or another. Buddy will be a good example, or a good experiment, I guess, for this, because he'll never get cold because he's not having a calf, and you know, we'll never sell him because we just don't want him anymore. So it'll be interesting to see how long Buddy lives. We might learn something. They might learn. They might be like donkeys and live to be like 50 years old. All right. Well, guys, I wish I could keep going, but man, if you notice, I'm having to drink a lot more water because my voice is starting to give out on me. So I really appreciate everybody for stopping in. Everybody that left a super chat, thank you for that. I do appreciate it, and we'll see you on the next live stream. So I just want to state again, in case people missed it, if I miss a video, or I have my regular upload days, Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. I think they are 7 in the morning, my time. So if you notice that I miss a video, then you can pretty well bet that I will be doing a live stream that afternoon. I don't know exactly what time it will be because it just depends on my schedule, and I hate to tell you it's going to be at a certain time and then it turns out that I can't do it. So I will, I guess, leave you with this. If I miss a video, just be watching that afternoon because a live stream will be coming. All right. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you on the next one.